Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to Dev Interrupted. I'm your host, Dan Lines, COO at LinearB, and today I'm joined by Eran Shitrit, VP of Product at LinearB. Eran, welcome to the show, man.
Hey Dan, happy to be here. Feels like so privileged to be in Dev Interrupted. I know you for a year and a half. What took you so long, Dan?
I know, oh my God. So it's like it's your first appearance on DI. What a special treat for everyone. You and I go way back. And that's why it like feels so good to finally have you on here. And for listeners who are new to the show or haven't listened to a lab session before, these labs episodes, they're where we take a little bit more of a behind the scenes, like insights, research generated by LinearB. We use that to discuss some of the things that are going on in dev, sometimes talk about like trends across the industry. In the past, we've covered things like best and worst programming languages for dev workflows, actually a really cool one, data behind pull requests, like all this in-depth data of what's happening with PRs. We also did a metrics benchmarks for engineering teams with Ori. So, totally recommend checking all those out. Great topics. But today, our topic, we'll be looking at R&D and project allocation, and that's where Iran comes into play. So like Iran, one of the leading researchers on how like modern dev orgs work or could work, and discuss why project allocation has become such an important issue for engineering teams. In fact, last week, LinearB hosted a workshop. This is amazing. You all gotta check it out. Workshop on scaling developer efficiency. It touches on how we think about project allocation. We had like a few thousand people in the DI or like engineering community join. So, we'll definitely post that link. Everyone check it out. But let's jump in today's conversation with Iran. Iran, why don't you give yourself kind of like a formal introduction, who you are and what you do at LinearB?
Thanks, Dan. So in LinearB, I'm the VP of Product, running the product and UX organization. Came from a background of between like 10 or 15 years of product leadership, leading, been a year and a half in LinearB, which is a treat. It is amazing ride outside of my comfort zone. I love it. But my former 15 years were actually leading cyber and data protection products from conception. Before that, I was actually doing a lot of cyber and a little bit of enterprise risk management. And as I will like to call it, before that, going back to the previous millennium, which gives away a little bit of my age, I was starting as an IT and managing networks and computers and servers for systems. Back in the 1997 days.
Wait, no way. I didn't even know that about you. You started out in like the network game.
Yeah, yeah. I
Oh,
have
that's
a I
awesome.
have a network. Yeah, totally network background.
And then
Sorry.
you rode the cybersecurity wave, both of us, super hot topic in like the, 2010s plus. And now you're on the good side with Linear B. And I'll kick us into the first question. So for anyone like in the audience who may not be aware, what is project allocation? Like how would you kind of define it in layman's terms?
That's a great question. I would start with a very generic question. Okay, what is project allocation? It's really about assigning resources to a project in order to complete it successfully. It sounds super simplistic, but it has a lot of details to it, right? You start with like, hey, amount of people. Is it aligned with by business focus or priority? It evolves like mainly two things when we talk about it in dev relations, right, in relation to our world, is really about, am I staffing my project or my initiative correct? Right? I want to be successful, making sure that the right amount of resources are there. And it really ties me back into my budget. Okay, what's my cost of running that dev resources into that initiative?
I think it's like it sounds simple. Probably if you think of like, okay, if you're an early startup and there's only 8 engineers and one product person, it's like, okay, you know what your project allocation is. It's like all of you go work on the most important thing that we're like trying to build this company on.
Yeah.
But it seems, and correct me if I'm wrong, it seems like it's the type of thing where it rapidly gets more complicated. You're thinking about a team of like 30 engineers and you have 50 engineers and you have 80 engineers, 200 engineers. Maybe you have all these inputs coming into product or like, I don't know, like your CEO. Like, can you elaborate on like how it gets like more complicated?
Oh, sure. Like try to envision, right, in your mind, trying to collect, hey, I have a 200, 300, right? I'm not even going to a crazy scale, 200, 300, yeah, developers.
Yeah.
And we are not just product, we're like we this triage of like, hey, I'm a VP of engineering, I'm a VP of product like myself, and I'm a project manager, right? The holy trial of, hey, this is a product delivery. And we're trying to compile, hey, what's our people are doing, right? What they is there? Are they aligned with our business, right? Besides, everybody's focused like, hey, on product, I get the delivery and the releases on time and getting that and enablement. And engineering has the engineering excellence. Like, hey, are we even aligned with business? How my people are spread across my initiative. It sounds simple, but it's usually a manual labor that is very tedious to get right.
Yeah. And I'd say like you even got the CEO, like usually CEO really wants to know like, okay, what's going on with the product. But it's surprising to me even in my because I was part of that, like, Triforce. There was, like, VPE, you're, like, on the product side, like, VP product, and then there could be, like, a finance person or, like, a project manager involved, but CEO can always come in and, like, pull the
Oh,
trump card and that type of thing. But I was surprised of how often the CEO was actually not aligned with even, like, the top 2 or 3 projects. Have you seen that at all, or, like,
yeah.
what's your
Yeah, we see it all the time. Like people are when we work with like early design partners, you see it like they're surprised. Okay, oh, I was not aware that these are my all my initiatives that my people are working on. Oh, how this initiative is being staffed way over on top of this other initiative that is like way lower impact in my business.
right?
It's very easy to lose track when you're in the hundreds of developers.
Especially when you start bringing in, like, the impact side of things, it's like, okay, yeah, what we're working on can get out of sync with what the business feels, can either, like, bring in the most revenue, that's usually what they care about, or, like, retain the most customers or, like, do something innovative. One thing that I wanted to ask you, because it's kind of a current event situation, I think we all know, but I'll give a little recap. Things are a little rough in the world right now. You have some companies, let's say, that are doing like downsizing. Global economy is not in perfect shape. What do you think kind of like makes this the right time for engineering orgs to start thinking maybe a little bit more about this project and product allocation stuff?
This is actually a very good time to ask that question. Like we see in recent weeks or over a couple of months, we feel the economy, right?
Yeah.
Everybody to be more efficient, right? A lot of companies looking on a way to be efficient and like reducing workforce and focusing on top initiatives. This thing, like, hey, this is time when I want to reevaluate my investment in my initiative in a company. This is a very natural thing to do in a company these days. So efficiency in resource allocation is really become a necessity to run the business in like these days. Companies need to be efficient in their resource allocation with a clear focus and priority. So this is why it becomes like it's a necessity during this time.
Yeah, it feels like kind of a time right now, like you mentioned it, but maybe we need to relook at what we're focused on. There's a lot of shuffling going around. You know what I was actually thinking about that I wanted to run by you? I also think that it's a good time, especially if we're thinking about engineering organizations, to be proactive with the business. And what do I mean by that? So if you're listening, you're like a BPE, think about having a view or like going to your CEO and saying, "Hey, I want to show you where engineering is investing, and I want to ensure to you that we have the right people on the top projects. And by the way," this is like probably the important part when we're thinking about downsizing or hopefully not downsizing in the engineering org. This is how many people it takes to be really like effective in the things that you would like to deliver, Mr. or Mrs. CEO, over the next 90 days. Like that sounds like very proactive to me, kind of like, let me ensure that, I'm protecting my people a bit, but like I have the resources that we need to deliver, on time. Like what do you think about that
Yeah,
mindset?
we've seen that, and we've seen like companies go even one step further from that. But actually, with companies that they've seen resource allocation, it kind of make them said, you know what? It's really easy for me to understand, right? Hey, I have like three initiatives that were totally make sense where we want to invest, right? We want to do something that is sitting for the future or think that the value was questionable. It really fits
Yeah.
last year's strategy for the company. Hey, now CEO, hey, we just want to make sure, hey, we've reinvested that the efforts from this initiative, who's the fit for the company a priority and focus is questionable. We reinvested them to be more efficient and actually when time to market is important, even staff our top initiative even in more efficient way. So this is
Oh,
this is
that's
a
really cool. Yeah. I mean yeah, I love that. That's even like something more proactive. Like, your VP, you can say, "Hey, I listened to the changes that we need to make." Because a lot of companies right now, let's be honest, they're focused on cost reduction, efficiency. How do I get more with less? How do I simulate a larger workforce? Like times are tough. And I think it's pretty cool what you're saying. Like, yeah, if you go in super proactive, is like, I wanna show or ensure to you that, like, we've made the adaptation, the changes that we need to focus on the new initiative. That's super smart, I love that.
we feel that,
Um,
by the way, like proactive is a thing. People are constantly reevaluating their initiative and their focus and their investment in top initiative in the company. We see that all the time.
we talk a lot about, like, metrics,
Mhm.
especially in these labs type episodes. What do you think are the metrics you would use to measure effective resource allocation?
It's a very good question. It has like layers. I think it touch a little bit of like I'm in my head, and when talking to customer, really resonate. Separate between like the org level, making sure that my initiative are prioritized and that they are in alignment with the business. Right, it's very easy for me to explain them. Right, my top initiative or my initiatives are stuffed correctly. I'm investing in the right stuff, or stop investing in the thing that I should not be invested. Then I actually zoom in, as I call it, and go initiative on a per initiative level, right? And then my focus changed to, am I executing on this initiative with the right predictability and quality and capacity to the business, right? So my shift changed from, okay, I'm stuffing it correctly. Am I doing it with the right cost on the org
Right,
level, to on a per initiative to talk about, hey, this is my planning accuracy. This is my capacity accuracy. This is my
right.
velocity.
No, I hear you. I mean, I've been in those types of meetings, and oftentimes, like again, when you're like a VP or like a VPPM, when you're in that type of meeting, you're usually with maybe like the C level, sometimes the board, or like it's kind of like the top level. So it might feel like a fast moving, high pressure situation. So if you start out with like, okay, here is my resource allocation. Here's like the percentage of people that we have focused on these projects. You can kind of see or expect instantaneously. It might be like, okay, this all looks good. By the way, how is project number two going?
Yeah.
And then you're like, okay, best situation is let me talk to you about that. And I think that's where you're saying like, your capacity accuracy, your planning accuracy, like, is that how you would use it, or like how have you seen it?
Oh, actually, you touch a very interesting point. Like I'm used to do it in a very certain way, right? In the old way on the spreadsheet or even a presentation. It's very hard to shift between that. And when questioned, it's very hard to put on the spot. Like you most definitely don't have the answer at hand. But you're right. Like you when working with CEO or even CFO, they can jump between, hey, what's the cost of this initiative? To, hey,
Right.
my VP of engineering or my project manager, hey, let me show you. We probably need more capacity because our planning accuracy, or we have a quality issue, or we need to have more people. It really goes really fast from like cost. org level to, hey, I probably need more people and this is why.
Yeah, it's like kind of almost context switching. Like, how fast can you be prepared to context switch, like
Yeah,
as a VPE? Like, I remember being in these conversations. So, like, CFOs, super smart people. They're like data geniuses in their own right, usually like with dollars and stuff. At the last company that both of us worked at, we had like a really sharp CFO.
yeah,
I remember I was like a little more of like a junior VP at the time. And yeah, the conversation, if it was like me, CEO, CFO, it would bounce quick to, okay, we're working on these projects. How much is it costing us? Okay, Dan, like, why do you need this many people? What's the total cost? What's the salary situation? Like a CFO usually has that mindset. Their efficiency mindset is like dollars to impact, like dollars spent to
right,
dollars gained, right? And
totally.
again, I think it's like around, we're going to talk a little bit more about like how you get that view to like hop around quick. But before we go there, what does good project allocation look like? And what does like bad project allocation look like?
So, let's say that I'm a modern VP of engineering, right? I have
Yeah.
that duality in my hand, right? Project allocation, it's hard to distinguish that, to talk about that in a very dispersed way, right? I want to, one hand, it's very natural to me to talk about like engineering excellence, right? All the right things that I'm doing right and I'm being efficient. But it's really, I see like modern VP need to talk more and more about business alignment. Hey, these are the initiatives that we have. I want to make sure that I'm staffed them correctly, and I need to have the data in hand to prove that. Right? This is a very good
Yeah.
allocation. I can show or demonstrate that I'm aligned with the business on one hand. I'm staffing my people correctly within budget, and I have the data to show that. That for
Right.
me would be a very good project allocation. And the people that I need to work with are of course the CEO, the CFO, the project management, the product management, right? So I'm really in the middle of people want to see the data in a meaningful and simple way, and they would like to start asking, as you say, like intelligent question about this data.
And then on the flip side, like what does like a bad allocation look like? Or like what have you seen with to be in like a not so good shape?
Okay, this is good example. So I take it
Yeah.
from the org level, right? Too many initiative, and this really goes to the organization by organization. But it's really common to see when I'm working with like design partners on that. Like a common pattern would be, hey, we're working on too many things. It's very often to hear that, right? As a business, we're working on too many things. We need to focus in order to be successful. It's a common thing, like shifting between 2022 to 2023 given 2021 when growth was a thing. So shifting, you will find it in a lot of company. Hey, we're working on too many things. We
Right.
can find initiatives that are fragmented or not staffed enough. This is a very bad behavior or bad project allocation that can be fixed like easily by following the good pattern.
Right. Let's dive into that a bit because I've had a lot of like brutal career lessons in fragmentation. And let's like define maybe fragmentation from like a scientific standpoint. And then we can like talk about maybe like a story around it. Or I'll bring one up because I have it in mind. But when you think about fragmentation, what does fragmentation mean to you from like a numbers perspective?
Yeah, you can find in organization, right? An initiative, a company initiative, something big that you has a company, I don't know, okay, I'll align to it, but like a one or two people, right? The amount of impact that you will gain from it, right, is insignificant for the business. You want to really consider discovering this like fragmented initiative and use the workforce there for your top initiative. It's a much more, I would say, recommended behavior in this time.
So it's kinda like there's, like, only 1 to 2 engineers, 2.5,
Yeah,
working on a bunch of projects, and the end result is, like, there's not, like, an MVP, like, a minimum amount of team that can actually get together to produce something of impact. Is that, like, a good way to say it? Something like that?
totally. You're totally right, and we see it a lot, right? Think about teams that went been to like restructuring or layoffs, right? You used to have like a 3 to 4, 5, 6 people that could
Yeah.
really that could really make a difference, could make an impact. And now they actually then now they're down to one, but this initiative keeps going on by inertia, right? So it's really this is the opportunity to look at it, to find these initiatives and say, you know what? I either join them together into one initiative. I use like 3 or 4 of them and unite them together and say, okay, I chose this one, or use these people for the high impact, the top priority business initiative.
Yeah, okay. Totally get it from like a more like science standpoint. Here's a story or like a lesson that I'd like to try to convey, and hopefully it will come out right. And I think I'm improving on it now, but maybe not. Let's see. So earlier in my career as a VP of engineering, I was usually working with CEOs. And I think still it's a true trait that some of the best CEOs are definitely have amazing visions and kind of push the company to do more than you think it could do. Like, let's get like the collective crew of people going in the right vision and we're going to produce this unbelievable thing. And so they kind of have this natural thing within them to it, like we can achieve more than you think that we could. And I actually think that that's like amazing CEOs, especially if you're like a product based company, which like a lot of us are. Now the thing is, when you get with that type of person, you're a VP of engineering or you're like a product person like yourself, there's a tendency then to like consume that vision and think you can do more than you can really do. That's the thing. It's like,
At
"Oh, yeah, I can do everything on the roadmap. We're gonna just, like, evangelize this thing, and, we can have, like, a small amount of people working on, like, 20 things in parallel."
Yeah,
But the thing is, in actuality, that energy wears off and some of these like really small fragmented projects start to not go so well because you can only live off of that energy for like a few weeks and then people get burned out and it doesn't work. So I guess one of the lessons or something that I'm working on in my career is like saying back to the CEO, "Hey, I totally understand your vision and I want to deliver on it. We're going to deliver on it, but let me show you some data of why we need to focus our energy and therefore focus like most of our people on maybe like your top 3 ideas because I want to deliver them in the best quality as fast as possible and kind of like resist that temptation to do everything at once. You know what I'm kind of saying here?
totally. Almost on a daily basis, I have to admit. But this is really touch on a agile methodology thing, right? It goes back to the roots of the thing that we're doing, being lean and agile, right? So stop starting and start finishing, right? It's really important. Hey, we can on a quarter on a specific term, we can finish 5 initiatives on 80%, or would you rather finish 4 of them on 100%? It's
Right.
really down to that. And it's a really interesting discussion saying, okay, now we're mid quarter. Should we refocus our people, or let's start the next quarter even smarter? Should we focus our people in, let's say, 80% of the initiative and set ourselves for success?
Right.
This is a very hard conversation, but backed with data, it's much easier.
Yeah, you hit on the right point. Like it's a tough conversation, but when you come and visualize your project allocation, the business, the CEO, other people kind of at that level will respect it and say, "Oh, okay, that makes sense." And the lesson that I learned is what the business respects from the engine like product engineering team is on time delivery as opposed to like, yeah, we got like 15 projects running in parallel. We're doing your vision, but all of them are late. No,
Yeah,
that sucks.
I totally
So
get it.
I wanted to say to the audience, don't make the mistakes I've made in the past. Now much better at like focusing in, deliver on the top 3 on time. The business will like reward you. And that's
Totally.
what I've learned.
I love it, and I call it in my own terms. I call it predictability. There's like great value to the business and create predictability. I will deliver on my promises on time. I just want to make sure that my promises are realistic. and when backed with data and my word on it, this becomes like a reality. I can make 95% of my promises on time with the right quality.
Right.
And this is really a shift in how we deliver product.
Now for you, I know one of the reasons that you're coming on the labs episode, because we were kind of like talking behind the scenes before it started. You within LinearB, like the product itself, you got to work on a few features like that are related to resource allocation, like project tracking that are in your wheelhouse of research. So I want to give you a chance to talk about like what did you work on? Like why was it fun? What does it do?
So it all started with the way that I've done resource allocation, right? Looking at the company initiative, like how I'm investing, right? Thinking about strategic way to how do we actually slice the pie of R&D resources, right? It's a common, I need to report on that. I need to track on that. This is a constant, I think that I need to worry and report on, right? So
Right.
I had a great opportunity to build a product for people like me, for people like my stakeholders, so we can all come prepared to such conversation. We really worked internally with design partner on a pain that almost every product delivery person, leader, actually, are, are having. I want a simple, easy solution to understand how do my R&D pie is sliced, how the effort are being sliced, right? What are they working on? Is there functional, non-functional, bug enhancements, and so on? Now we can have a very intelligent discussion when talking to the C level, right? We wanna we want to come to the table with data. This is a lot of the DNA that LinearB was founded on, right? So we build exactly that. We actually build a resource allocation we connected to your PM board, your Jira, for example, and we automatically scan it. So I don't need to go and select board and do all this tedious work that I used to do, like running around me and my people to prepare that report. And we scan for initiative, project, and epic. Each organization is a little bit different these days, and create really a simple dashboard that can easily provide me with the visibility and the amount of cost and FTE per initiative, right? This is the basic thing that I need in order to talk intelligently about like slicing the pie. It really enabled me in turn to base my engineering resource strategy, to talk about it and to even base my own decision before I even go to the meeting on real data. It's important to me, but also to my stakeholders. I can discover fragmented low value initiative. I can think that we should stop doing. This is a constant worry to me, specifically at this time, these two. And it was very hard to do before. It was either done by Excel or like an additional tool or stuff or information that I need to get from like 3 or 4 systems easily. I was like feeling very privileged and like within the bits and bytes of building everything like in resource allocation, I was using number zero as I call it. I
Yeah.
use it all the time.
I'm so excited for you because like usually, when we think linear beer, we talk on like pods and stuff. We're talking cycle time, we're talking Dora metrics, we're talking PR size, which relates to all this stuff of on time delivery. But you got an opportunity to, deliver something for that like VP of engineering plus the, VP of product plus the CEO, CFO world, which I know is like such a pain point as we've been talking about for most of the episode here. What I'd love to hear is kind of that relationship between the VPE, the VP product, the CEO, and like how do you think what you built kind of affects that workflow that party goes through, over and over?
Yeah. When you think about, you need to think about like the internal working of such a meeting, right?
Right.
It's not from a preparation, right? Both from the product side. Hey, these are the business initiatives, right? I'm working very hard to make sure that they align with the business. Now, engineering has their own list, right? So, right out of the bat, we're starting to compare lists, right? Usually spreadsheet, very human labor, right? Very manual work, prone to errors. We've done it a lot of time, so it's not funny. You don't see me funny over that, right? Um, it's always a rush, right? 2 days before we need to do it, I'm working with my project manager, my CEO, all my stakeholders to make sure that it's right on time. And the thing that was a constant pitfall for us is like we come very prepared with a spreadsheet, right? We gather all this data and we are very confident we'll build a very nice slide based on all this data. And now the CFO or the CFO, usually it was actually the CEO, which is like super, super smart, super data driven. Oh, can you show me how, can you drill down into this initiative? I want to know more about, hey, why do you need like more people? How this,
Yeah.
how we're being stopped. Super annoying. And it was like super frustrating for me to not be able to answer on the spot. It's
Yeah.
like, hey, you're right. Let me go back and get the data for you. Then it's another meeting. It's very hard to get scheduled, and a little bit of frustration, right? So again, a bonus for me, like saying, hey, you know what? I get this data. Hey, what do you want to know? Going back and forth, it was like super
It
exciting.
totally makes sense to me because when I'm in one of those types of meetings, what worries me, okay, like in a spreadsheet, you can do all this preparation, put in like a high level of effort, and it can answer questions that are, I don't know, like predefined, right?
Exactly.
But when you get into the actual dynamic conversation and you want to be data backed about your resource allocation, how is the project going? What are the bottlenecks? When are we going to deliver on time? All of that. How much does it cost? All of that stuff comes up. And I think like the badass thing about the thing that you built is it's all connected together. So it's like, hey, not only am I going to tell you like why I need this many people, but I'm also going to actually show you the screen. Okay, let me click into this and I'll show you how is the project going and why we should continue this like amazing investment. And when you bring it with data, the response from the other parties in the room is like, okay, cool. Like I don't have any more questions. Gotcha.
Yeah. Dan, think about it like visualize. I'm coming to you as a COO. I'm asking for more resources for my initiative. It's one thing to say, hey, initiative number two, hey, I have a quality problem. I have a quality problem there. Think about it. You would say, okay, I need more data. Totally natural response, right? If I zoom in on this initiative and show you, hey, you know what, Dan? Look, over the last 6 months, my open bug rate trend is this. Now we're having a totally different conversation and say, hey, you know what, Eran? Yes, I can totally support putting like two more QA people or engineers that are focused on quality. Now understand, yeah, we want to be more predictable. We all understand that we have a quality issue.
Yeah.
Just an example.
No, that's cool. It's like you want to know why it's like a little bit behind? Look at this bug
Oh,
trend. Our
yeah.
percent investment in bugs is 20%. That's why we need two other people on this project. We have too much technical debt. It's hard to say no to that. It's
Yeah.
like, okay, let's do it. Like, let's deliver on time and let's make like let's add those two people. I get it. Done. Well, that's wonderful. We're coming up on our time here. Is there anything that we didn't touch or anything that you wanna
I feel like we touched we touched all the basics like in resource allocation. For me, it was really like an eye opener and a change. It was like pivotal change. Now I'm collecting the data. I don't need to bug my people, right? I can have a very intelligent conversation. I call it within my head about, hey, what's my strategy should be? I can look at it and plan, okay, I have these two people. I can come prepared to meeting with the C level, super important. I can even my internal meeting with my peers, the VP of engineering and the product manager are really much more effective. We can go back and forth. Hey, look at this data 6 months ago or 2 months ago. Oh, hey, what we want to be the baseline. So it's really transformational. It really transformed my conversation with my peers, the VP of project and engineering, and my C-level conversation. Now my CEO come back to my desk and actually show me, hey, can you show me this? Can you show me this about the initiative? How much did you invest in? How can you know? Can you compare it like, hey, show me 6 months ago? It's like it's amazing.
Yeah, man. Well, first off, I'm super excited for you. This feature set is amazing. Everyone should check it out at LinearB. I wanted to thank you for coming and sitting down with me today. I know it took us a minute to get you on for a labs episode. We'll have to have you back in the future, but thank you so much for coming on.
Happy to be here, Dan. Thanks for inviting me.
If you enjoyed today's episode, consider watching the Developer Efficiency Workshop. It's up on our YouTube channel and it's linked in the show notes. Hope you all enjoyed this edition of LinearB Labs, and we'll see you all next week.